An important part of the way that Revit works is that the ribbon itself is context sensitive. So when you click on a component, say I click on this piece of furniture, you see that it tells me what it is, and it shows me the properties of the object that I selected. But notice also that the ribbon has turned to green, tells you that you're editing furniture, and on the right hand side it'll offer you, with the green panel, commands that are specific to furniture. So the way this is helpful to me is that, for example, if I pick on a wall, I get commands that are specific to walls that otherwise I didn't see before I'd selected the object. If I did something like pick on a door, I get commands that are specific to the door. If I pick on a plant, I get commands that are specific. If I were to select multiple things at the same time using the control key, then I get commands that are common to the selected objects. But it's a great way to see information about what you're drafting and see what options are available to you. The option on the left that I'd mentioned to you when I said you could type in PP, this is the properties palette. So PP, for example, turns it off, PP turns it on, PP turns it off, PP turns it off. The other way was to go to the View tab, User Interface, and if you turned it off there or turned it on there, you'd be getting it switched on, switched off. You can move the components of the interface around on the screen. For example, I could drag the create off of here to see those options all laid out in front of me if you've got like dual monitors. To put it back, if you hover over it and you click on the item that says return panels to the ribbon, it'll return it to its previous position. Now, some people might like to do it like this, where you can actually put those components on your screen teared off and then put them back later on. I'm going to suggest that for the purposes of our class, you don't want to do that, because it'd be difficult sitting down at a different workstation and seeing different layouts of the interface. So we'll try and keep them all looking the same. Although because of real estate, because this drawing view might be limited on your monitors, you can take the components. For example, this component is the project browser. This is how you navigate and move between views. And you can drag it and release it either to get a floating palette, or you can drag it to the side of the screen and let it dock, where what it does is it positions itself along the edge of your screen. Now, it might be that if your monitor is small, it's a good idea to be able to see maybe the properties palette on the left hand side and the navigation or the project browser palette on the right hand side. So what I'd mentioned on the concept behind the properties palette is it's like a driver's license. Imagine you look at your driver's license and it says your height is 5'6", your color of hair is black, your eyes are brown. Well, that's really what you're seeing in here. Is if I pick on, say, a wall, it says this is the nature of the wall style that you're working with. This is where it's been drafted on the foundation level, and this is how high it is. It's unconnected and it's 11 feet 1. It's got information about the actual object that you're looking at. The difference is that they are actually, the data is actually connected to the object. So you can, for example, pick on a wall and change its height. It would be like me being able to go to my driver's license and say color of hair and change that to black, and suddenly my hair is black. That's the way that you make changes using the properties palette that's inside Revit Architecture. On the right hand side of the screen now, what I'm showing is the navigation palette. And the navigation palette is how I move around inside my project. So if you look at the list of items that are here, they are really views. They are depictions of the data through a view of a specific type, like a floor plan view is cutting through the model 4 feet above the level that I'm looking at here. A level is like a horizontal plane that runs through the model. So I've got at ground level, 4 feet above ground level, it's cutting through the model to show me the building components as they would appear in plan view. So I can move between views by double clicking on the views to see, what I've got. So in the site view, I can see topography, I can see my building. On the ceiling plan, I can see, this is a reflected ceiling plan, I can see lights and different components. Each view is, what you see on the view is completely customizable to that view. A 3D view, this is the same as the icon that's shown on your quick access toolbar. It is the one that looks like a house. You can see it here on my quick access toolbar. You can also see it on my Windows interface here, and you can also see it on the project browser where I can navigate and I can see the house itself in my view. So the 3D view is something that will let me see the entire project and is as a 3D orthographic model. More on these views later, but the point at the moment is that this is how you navigate between one view and another view. You can be switching around to look at the project by clicking on a view and opening it. Now when you look at a project, so if I go to say my 3D view, you can choose to adjust visibility options for the view. And the options that are most important are, say, under a ground plan. If I'm looking at the building itself with its materials, you can say if you want a minimum amount of detail, coarse level of detail, where you're just seeing the outside of the building depicted any way that you want to control it. So I in this particular example, I've got a solid color, but I'm only seeing the two faces of my wall and not the detail in it. At medium level of detail, I'm actually seeing inside the wall to reveal the components, brick, insulation, and brick again in this particular example. You can also, if you look at a model, and this I'm going back to my 3D view, you can choose how the model is displayed using different options for shading the view. So for example, wireframe is looking all the way through it. You're not seeing surfaces, you're just seeing the edges of surfaces. You might use this if, for example, you had imported a DWG file and were drafting on top of it. You're creating something like a floor, but the floor has surfaces and is hiding the DWG file underneath it. Well, by turning back to wireframe, you can see the graphics that are under your that would have been hidden by surfaces. Typically, views are displayed as hidden lines, so you're actually seeing the surfaces depicted in the model itself. You can choose to say shaded, so the materials that are used have a default shading color. You can see that the grass is green. You're not actually seeing a bitmap image of the grass, but you're seeing the shading color associated with the material, which is green. Then if you go to consistent colors, is really to do with if you had elevations. So let me switch to an elevation view, one that's a bit more interesting. This is I'm going to go to the south elevation of my, north is good, north elevation of my view. Consistent colors is really like, well, I want colors on my view, but I don't want them to be affected by position of the sun inside my model. I don't want the brick color to be different on the north side of the building than it is on the south side of my building, because really I'm just interested in depicting the materials. And so that's what consistent colors is about. It's mostly to do with the fact that you can choose to display the materials in color according to their shading colors. You've got additional options, which are that you could choose to say realistic. So realistic will actually show you the bitmap images that are used, the photographs that are used of your components. So for example, you see that I'm seeing real brick, and on my plants I'm seeing a real plant. And I'll develop that a bit more later as we look at the model. But for the moment, I'm not going to explain more of these. I'll explain them as we work through the interface, what all of these other options do. The ones that you needed to know about to begin are coarse, medium or fine level of detail, and what kind of shading is applied to the view. So if I switch back to the top here. On the very bottom of your view, you have what's called the status bar. And mostly what you should be looking at that for is that when you pick a command, so for example, I say architecture and I'm drafting a wall, you would notice that when I'm in the drafting area, that the status bar itself says click to enter wall start point, and then it gives me options that relate to my command. So I can see spacebar flips orientation. In this case it won't matter, but I can see that I'm actually placing my wall, and I'm getting prompts on what I can do. SC, for example, to close and enter, that kind of thing. Oops, sorry, turned off my property palette by mistake. So you see that I can draft, watching for prompts down in this corner. To get rid of things, I'm simply going to select them and hit the delete key, which is probably the easiest command to remember in Revit.